Welcome to the Strategy Investment Podcast with Brett Warner. Brett is a successful entrepreneur, an investor, and he and his team have sold over $1 billion in real estate, and that is exactly what this show is about: real estate, family finance, and investing. Hey, my name is Jason. I'm your host, and I'm going to be here asking questions and learning as much as possible with you today. And hey, whether you're listening on the podcast or watching on YouTube, we're glad that you're here. And today we are talking about 3 things that will straight up make you wealthy. Now, Brett, the 3 things that came to mind as we were talking about this episode, there were 3 things that kind of popped into your mind. What were those 3 things?
Well, one was certainly real estate, and then investing, and the mindset, how you think about all this kind of stuff. Here, I'm going to adjust just a second here. But but it's the mindset that we have is what a lot of things come down. But with that, I always say there's a dream and then there's a plan, and to get to that dream comes and goes. You sometimes forget it before you're even awake, but a plan takes action, and it's getting there. And so that's where, like, the investing in real estate is a vehicle within investing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, we went out, we tried to get as many questions as we could from clients, from friends, from family about these 3 things, or what those 3 things would be. And real estate is obviously right in the wheelhouse and part of, as you've said in past episodes, a good investment strategy overall. Some of the questions that are around the real estate, the first one was why is real estate the first thing on the list? Why did real estate come to mind first? Was that more a personal choice, or have you always said, no, that is the number one strategy?
Well, real estate came first when I was more in my 30s or late 20s. Stock investing and mutual funds and indexes and these kind of things were very young, in my 20s and my late teens, learning how to use stocks. But I realized I didn't have the ability to grow. So why I worked and built my first 25 or 50,000 working a job, as we spoke about in previous episodes, I saved money over, a 8 to 10 year period. And when I did that, then I said, now I need to leverage my money. So if I have the stock, we'll get in that compound thing too. So if I have stock and I have $10,000 of stock, no margin, and it goes up, let's just make it easier math. Okay, so I have $100 in stock and it goes up 10%. I got $110 at the end of the year. 5%, I got $105 at the end of the year. But if I buy real estate and I have $1,000, I can buy $100,000 worth of real estate. Might be $2,000. But now I have $2,000 of real estate growing over a period of time, which is what I said is the greatest thing that benefits anyone in the power of compound, unless you have more money than time. And that's what we all seem to have. And what we want to fight or we want to have back is our time.
Right. So, yeah. Now, there were a couple of things that you said right there that really stuck out to me, because the first thing that you started with was where you're at in the span of your lifetime. Are you in your 20s? Are you in your 30s? Are you in your 40s?
Yes.
And that matters so much. I think, we've heard you talk about, hey, work your job, build your wealth. And really that starts with savings and discipline. I've heard you talk about.
Oh yeah. Discipline is important. Absolutely.
And then when you get to a certain point, real estate, it turns out to be number one. Now, when is that moment? Is there really a tipping point in your mind?
Well, I think it's just having security. I mean, when I say security is kind of a big stretch, but at the same time, knowing that you have enough to pay the bills, knowing enough that you're stable enough that you're not going to be jumping from one town to the next town, that you've kind of established yourself, then you have a job or something that shows that you got income. Because when you buy the real estate, then you have bought that real estate, and then that real estate makes income and it appreciates, where stocks often are just, they will give you dividends that are usually, most people will reinvest those dividends until you get older. And then when you're younger, you'll reinvest, so it just continues to grow the stock. But the truth is it's just you have 100,000 growing and you only have 10,000 in. So if I only have 10,000, let's say I just saved $10,000, 10% of my down payment, which is really a large down payment for a homeowner, 10% that is.
Right.
And if I bought a $100,000 property and that property goes up 5%. I'm going to use a smaller number than the average, 5% a year, and I hold it for 5 years. But we'll just say 1 year. It was a decent year. It was 5%. I went up 5,000. I made 50% on my money. Where if I bought stock and in 1 year that stock went up, I had $1,000 in stock, or even $10,000 of stock, and that stock went up. What did I just say? How much? What else? It was
10%.
10%. Essentially, that I would have $1,100. I made $1,000, and the other one I made $10,000. I made 10 times my money with the same amount of money. At the same time, I have to make sure I can hold on to those properties. I mean, I don't want to go out buying properties and not have anything into them, or know that there's a value in that property. So I'm going to buy a property. I mean, I don't have to put a lot of money into it if it has 100 or 50,000 in value. So I got a distressed sale. Somebody knows me down the street, or a friend, and they say, I just want to get the heck out of town. Just buy it as is, where is, and which means I'm not doing nothing. I'm out of here in a week. Well, maybe you want to look at that. So this is when you say time of age, it doesn't always mean, because an opportunity can come, like when my grandma was moving out of her condo, or actually when she passed on, she passed on, and it was in this one town, and it would have been great. It's a great big town now. Could have bought the condo for $90,000. And I could have probably done that easily. And today that condo would probably be worth, $350, at least $275, $300. And I would have given me rents the whole time. And I could have probably, I probably would have sold it, because I don't live in that area anymore. But that's, that's where I say this opportunity. So you got to keep your eyes up.
Opportunity is another factor in there, is what you're saying.
Here's another thing, like if your kid's going to college, right? So if your kid's going to college, they're going off for 4 years, and they're in a nice place. First year they stay in the dorms, because a lot of them require that. The next three, the first year you're looking for a place. You buy a condo, you plan to hold it for 3 to 5 years. No matter what, when you buy real estate, you want to own that real estate for 3 to 5 years. So when I'm talking here, I'm not talking 1 year flips, 1 year. I mean, you go talk. We got books and these other things that people have. But really, this is long-term holds. And if your kid's at college for 3 years, that's really long enough. I mean, to say, okay, I'm going to buy now. I found a good deal. I'm going to go ahead and, instead of paying somebody else rent, and then in 3 years, I'll decide whether I'm going to hold on to it, or I'm going to continue to rent to another classmate or two, because I know some kids that are now freshmen or sophomores, that while my son or my daughter is a senior. And so then you might have it for 5 years, and then you sell it out. So that would be another opportunity towards the back end. Or grandma needs a house. She wants to retire, and people are like, I put her in a nursing home. Why didn't you buy her a house down the street? And hold that house for 5 to 10 years. Or maybe they can't afford the house anymore. Maybe buy mom's or dad's house. And so there's so many things, not just timing. When it's timing, it's very easy. Like 55, I start to go bonds. I start to take out my aggressive stocks. And when I'm 30, I should be all aggressive. And, it's probably while you're learning, stay into indexes. And so these are, there's so many aspects to what you're saying.
Yeah. So many things to consider, I think. And really what I just said was only a part of it. I mean, what I hear you saying is, like, what are the opportunities that are in front of you in the stage of life that you're in?
Yes.
And here's the other thing that I want to highlight for people that are listening. One of the things you just said will absolutely stick with me. You said, where else could you have, 10 or 15 or 20% in that, and have 100% growing?
Yes.
That's profound. That actually helped me think about it differently.
Yes.
Because this is the place in real estate. So next question was this, that kind of came through. Buying a second property can seem daunting. Where do I start? Someone asked. So, you finally got your home that you're living in. You've got that asset going for you. Where does someone start? I mean, we just talked about opportunity that, in a stage of life, or maybe an opportunity that you see in the market. But I think a part of what this question is getting at is, do you look on an auction? Do you really just look for an opportunity in the marketplace? Or where should someone kind of start looking?
Well, I mean, probably across the street, but it's just keeping your head up. But I'll go back to, we have, at my office, we have a team. We have people there that study it all week. And, on Monday it's available, and on Friday it's not available anymore. And, they've taken it off. So you would have spent Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of following this thing just to have it pulled. So you might have good brokers, brokers that are very knowledgeable, and as I've said in past, that you trust, that they're there to look out for you. It's not about the sale tomorrow. It's about a lifelong relationship. It's like the doctor's not like waiting for you to come back into the doctor's room. He wants to be there to help you when you're ready for it or you need it. And so that's what your broker does. Your broker is one who's not there to sell. I mean, there's so many out there, and that's just what I just want to warn people. There's a lot out there. They get it, boom, sell, sell, sell. And the first thing is you say, hey, I want a house. They say, oh, I got to sell you a house.
Right.
And you say, I like this house. Let's sell you that house. And then it's like, oh, well, what about this? It's a gray house you want. And it's not about, let's say, okay, let's find why this might not be a good house. And that's what a friend does. Somebody who cares is going to be like, hey, did you, maybe you want to go, we were talking about earlier, maybe you want to go a little larger. Maybe you want to go a little larger house because, you know, you haven't had, you're talking about kids last week and, you know, do you want to move 5 times and pay $50,000 each time you move? Or do you want to buy and maybe move once or twice in your life? And if you want to move 5 times, great. But as a friend, I want to talk to you about these expenses. You know, maybe stretching yourself a little more. But if you can't afford anything, then just get what you can.
Right.
And sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the importance of a good broker. Part of what you're saying is that that's the importance of that relationship built with the broker over time as well.
Yes. And so like our brokers, I mean, we got some that are, and there's plenty out there in all cities, but they make sure that they own some real estate themselves. They know how to evaluate real estate. They generally probably have some or have worked in their industry. I mean, if you got a guy trying to sell you, you know, something that they don't sell, they probably shouldn't be selling you that. Like I shouldn't be selling somebody a farm in Eastern Washington, okay? Because I don't sell farms, and I don't know even what they grow. And I know they grow potatoes somewhere out there, but I don't know. So, you know, you would want to get in that area, you'd get a hold of me. I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know Bob, and he's in so-and-so, or I know the right person to call. Then I would ask, who's the best grain farmer broker who understands how much grain costs and what the equipment's worth and these other things. But so many brokers are like, I'll just take the job. And it's like, well, really?
To make a sale, really, yeah.
And it's like you got a foot doctor working on somebody's heart, you know, and really there's many different industries. So really know your broker and then those brokers should understand their subject matter. And so that knowledge, the friend is good, but if the friend doesn't know anything, well, they're not going to protect you from anything. So you want them to be knowledgeable. It's important.
That's really good. And it kind of leads into this next question that we got, which is, how do I make the most out of my real estate investment? And so I think this, some of the notes that came along with this question were, you know, do you immediately look for cash flow? And I feel like this is part of almost a good relationship with a broker that can help you navigate through some of these things. And I know that I've heard you talk with people about, hey, it's not necessarily always about cash flow, but how does someone make the most out of that? Really, when they take that step, they've got that property. Are they really trying to evaluate cash flow first and foremost, or is it kind of this long term? Like you talked about, there's opportunity in 3 and 5 years, and you be taking more of a long term approach to it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you can find properties that are busted up, and you can get cash flow right away. You can go into more, I would say, a little more depressed part of towns or stuff and make them better by bringing paint and doing these things. But you'll get a better return in those kind of areas. But you won't often if you're going to the suburbs, the suburbans, or, you know, even anytime you buy, you're never really cash flowing big. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and it's never like, oh, the only time that actually that we've actually had where it was like, wow, you make really good money. It was back in 2003. There was some good money. I mean, there's always money to be found, but it was like there was lines of them in 2010 when no banks were giving any money. I had deals. I'm like, dude, I'll get you $300 a door. You get a duplex. I'll make you. You know, you put down $100,000. You're making $600 a month. I mean, I'm getting you literally, you know, 10, 20% back on your returns. I'm not interested. And so, you know, it's a sign of the times and these kind of things. But really, it's that real estate. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. So, it's just the timing, it sounds like, is taken into consideration. And again, I think this is pointing back to the expertise of a broker and someone that you're walking alongside with to be able to help you recognize, like, oh no, this is a cash flow play, or this is we're just going to hold.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that you've told me is too, hey, don't worry if you end up putting a little bit of money in as you go. This is an investment, same as you'd be buying a stock.
Investment is made over time. So people are like, you know, you can buy an opportunity, you can buy a distressed property, you can clean it up, and you can sell it. You can gain for more. But really, a property, if you want to make money over time, it's either you put a lot of money into it for the return that you want to set your rate at. So if I was a corporation and I had somebody gave me billions of dollars to go buy real estate, I'm setting all my properties at LTV that will bring in a certain income, and from there I increase the property's values. I bring in pools and I bring in little things that are going to bring in some better internet, and used to be they'd add cable, now they add internet, and then they charge you more, and they wrap and they bundle, and so you try to make it a more profitable property. Over time, inflation happens, the dollar becomes worth less, rent goes up, everybody says, hey, I want you to pay for all my schools, and I'm like, okay, and then the taxes go up, so rents go up, and just the dollar inflates, which then rents will go up
eventually.
And so over time you'll just be like, wow, how when I bought it, and today you'll buy a property, let's just say if your rent in your area is giving $1,000, and 10 years you're gonna be like, it's going to be either $1,200 or $1,600. It's just rents will go up unless the whole system blows up. I mean, and that's the power of compound. So when we went from $10 to $100, it's the same as going from 1,000 to 10,000. It's just it happens in the same amount of time. And going from 10,000 to 100,000 is the same kind of thing. Compound just works that way.
Gotcha. Hey, well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to pivot to the second point.
Okay.
So we've titled the show "3 Things That Will Make You Wealthy," and the second one that we had listed here was investing. Yes. And you talked at the outset a little bit about stock and trading, and I want the first question that we got here is, investing is a very broad term. Are we talking about Roth and retirement, or are we talking more about, hey, stock picking and finding a place where you can rely on some stocks and investing yourself? What are those steps? What do they look like? What are we talking about specifically when we say, hey, this is one of those things that will make you wealthy?
Yeah, I think investing, okay. Well, investing, really, first of all, you got to learn to save, okay? And so, but you don't want to save too long that you never invest. And so you'd want to save whether it's 1,000 or 10,000. 100,000 may be a little much unless you have a lot of expenses. But find that nice number, prove that you can save 5,000 or 10,000, and then take that. Let's say the number is 10. You just want to prove to yourself because you can put away. Let's just say you can put away $1,000 a month, which could be very good if somebody can do that. It means you've controlled your budget pretty well, and that means in 10 months you'll have $10,000. Well, then you'd pull out 2,000 of that, and then you start investing that money. That money, first of all, there are different vehicles. So there's the 401k. So while you're doing this saving, you should be doing a 401k, which that would be a mutual funds. It'd be a NASDAQ. It would be an SP 500. It would be
okay. So do that at the same time. So what I heard you say there was, while you're doing this, you're taking this in our saving step, be saving, and also be putting something away.
If your job offers a 401k, you probably want to go there. If there's matching, certainly the first 5 to 10%, every penny goes there. If you want a little more, you might stick some in a Roth. In a Roth, you can go into individual stocks. A Roth, you can go into mutual funds. You can go into gold. You can go into all sorts of fun stuff. But you want to certainly get that money out of savings, because savings is just going to sit there, and every it just sits
and depreciate
there.
basically.
Basically, it's not going to probably be worth more. And so that's why you take that 2,000 away, and then you start buying your stocks, and you start learning, or you start burning. If you don't want to learn about individual stocks, there's a lot of things. People go to Etsy, they go to Pinterest. Pinterest. I always know the tickers. I'm sorry, I'll say pins and stuff like that. But and so. When you know those things, those are the things you should invest in. So you should be taking your savings and you should be buying that. In your company, you're kind of putting in the long-term mutual funds, because they're not going to really offer you, in most companies, they don't say, hey, do you want to buy Microsoft? Unless you're working for Microsoft. Right. Like when you're working for a company like IBM, then they'll offer stocks. You can have your 5 mutual fund picks, and you can have your Roth picks, and then you might have the company fund. But once again, if you're working at a company, you'd want to be very careful about too highly investing into your company that you're working for. So if they go down and then you lose all of your stock, so you would probably want to still have S&P.
Still diversify a little bit.
Within your 401k.
Right.
You'd want to have probably, be saving, depending on your company, 10, 20%, maybe 5, on the actual stock itself.
Gotcha.
And so that's just it's the important thing. That you get your money working, and that takes a plan. And so what you're doing is you're kind of just shuffling away here. Then you could shuffle some into the Roth, which is $6,000 a year if you're under 55. And then if you have anything left after that, which you're doing really good if you can do both of those, especially in your 20s. Now in your 40s, you should be doing both of those if you got a job and saving in a joint account. So if you want to retire a little younger, you can tap some of that money earlier at 50 or 55 or 60, because otherwise you got to wait till all the vehicles, the 401ks, Roths, and these things, it's 59, 65 before you usually touch them. So.
Now, one of the things that I've seen you do as well is really just investing on your own, and I know we have listeners out there that are very interested in that and dabble a little bit, or potentially can be very into that. Where are some places that you look to know kind of what to buy or when to buy? What are some places that you go like, no, I watch this and that helps me make good decisions?
So I just make sure I got the question right.
Sure.
How do I make a good choice on a property in my area?
On stocks.
Oh,
on stocks. Yeah, we talked about, investing, saving, and then I know that for you, investing in stocks is a big part of what you, I think, enjoy, number one.
Yeah.
And then number two, just kind of you see that as a good
Well, that's
step.
kind of like studying, right? And so the way I know stocks, I mean, you can know a stock and you can ask somebody, a friend, or you can read some articles, but it's kind of like it becomes a heartbeat, right? So I look at certain things. I'll look at where it's found and where it was priced maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago, 1 year ago. I'll look at the growth rates. I'll look at the revenues, all sorts of things. The management, what is the spirit of the company? There's a lot of things to look at. Often I just go with my gut. It's often like a coder. I was walking with a friend today. He was a coder, and he just understands it. And I'm like, I heard you just kind of see the tip of the iceberg of coding. And this is what I found it interesting. And all this other stuff I can't really explain within this AI world that's artificial intelligence.
Right.
And he goes, it's so right. I said, so they're always like experiencing and they're discovering stuff, but they can't really explain it. And I mean, just like faith and then in finance, it's hard to explain. So, when I look at a company, and that's why people stick with mutual funds and they stick with S&Ps. Right. They're like, well, I don't have to think and I'm not smart enough and I shouldn't. And I'm like, yes, you are. I mean, can you learn how to work on a carburetor? Well, if I want to go learn, well, stocks are the same thing. And that's why we're going to add things to our website as we go. And we'll add links to TD Ameritrade or Barney Smith. I mean, we'll have different companies out there that Schwab, probably some no-load ones that will just be where we'll lead people where they can learn more of this stuff. Because I'll give you a general oversense here, but you really got to sit there. You got to get in, you got to read, you got to watch some of these podcasts. Because, I could remake all these podcasts here, but a lot of them are out there. And so we hope to give some of those links to how not to be frauded on, how not to be, because there's fraud happening all the way. And you get frauded once, it can set you back 10 years. So you need to be careful, and how to invest. What's the difference between a mutual fund? When do you start getting into CDs? Why do you have bonds? What's an annuity? Are there good annuities? But these are all things that, you're not going to get from this.
But what I hear you say is do your homework.
Homework.
You've done your homework. You've said, okay, I've done the homework, and now these things stand out.
I want to say something critical, really. It's you do your homework, but you never understand it. Okay, so people sometimes will wait till they think they completely understand it. I tell you, I am still learning. I learn every day. I'm not going to tell you this week what I went out and did, but every week I go out and do something new in the stock world because there's new companies, there's new things coming out, and I have no idea. But I'm like, well, I'll go learn, and that's because I have enough.
Well, Brett,
I don't have tons, but I have enough to go. Let me go learn with this. I learned with that first bit, so let me just take a little bit over here because that's old now. If I think I've figured something out so well that I can just sit there and just rest in those in my loins and not stir over it and try to do anything with it, then it's gonna fail.
And Brett, you've told me stories we've sat and talked about when you started coaching me a little bit as I was taking some of these steps and asking you these questions personally. You said, look, don't let the fear of starting stop you from starting. And I know Kylie, our producer, loves that saying, but really, and you drove this home. You said, look, I've seen so many people overdo it with the homework. So I love that you jumped in there because you were like, Jason, look, do some homework and then jump in.
Yes.
When's the time? Now's the time.
You got to learn, and that's how you learn. There's people that will talk about all this stuff, but they've never really done the hands in, the nitty gritty. And it's like you can sit there and observe all you want, but you're probably not going to get rich there. I mean, and it's not really about getting rich. I mean, part of this is all learning, and the one thing I love about real estate, it really is so much relation. It's so much relationships that then has this like nails and wood in between. But it's a relational business, and you know I've helped people out. They've helped me. We grow together. I watch families. I mean, I get invited to funerals. I get invited to weddings. It's way beyond.
Yeah, the relational element is really rewarding.
That's what keeps me going. If it was just the money, I'd probably.
Do something else.
Well, I'd probably, you'd probably go into a quiet room and not talk to anybody, and you would just sit there and be Mr. Scrooge counting your pennies.
One of the other things, and then I think this is the last question that we have time for, but one of the things that I've heard you say, and it kind of came up as we were thinking about this episode, is you've said invest like a hoarder.
Oh, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that a little bit because that one stuck with me for sure. You've said that to me personally at times. Like, tell us about that. Like, what does that mean? Invest like a hoarder. You've said that.
Well, I'm joking because I probably was dealing with a hoarder that week, and it probably was the case. And so I probably came out of a place that's going, oh my gosh, there's people that will just keep, and they'll just line up magazines, and basically a path. And I just amazed that they can get so many magazines or so many jars. And there are hoarders that hoard everything, but there's these other hoarders that hoard particular things. And so I was kind of talking about one of those hoarders. And so I was just, I guess it could be many particular things too. But I was saying, hey, as you're going along through your life, especially now that you have many of these companies, and most of them probably in the next couple of years will be no fees at all. You just pick up a few stocks here. I mean, I went in this last week and just bought one share of a company. All right. Actually, there was three of them. I just went in and bought one share of that, one share of that, one share of that. And if you knew, you'd be like, "Well, why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Well, it's just
stick it away in the garage. Stick it away in the garage."
It was like when I was young. I'd take the dollars, and when I'd keep the change, I'd drop just the pennies and thing, and I'd look at it back a year and go, "Look at that jar. Look at that jar full of pennies. That's amazing how many pennies I got there." And I said, "Well, why can't I do that with companies?" And so as I started going, I just, and as I was taking some of that real estate wealth after I bought some great companies way back when that proved to me that power compound works. And so then as I went through my real estate and started getting out the real estate, I went, where am I putting my money? Well, there's some stocks there. And I thought, well, as you're going, and as I went through the time, as I told you about 401ks and Roths, and so you just drop the money in look at them as pennies. You just put another company in the bank, and they're like, well, it's not enough. And I was like, well, the first penny in the jar didn't seem like enough either. But when you added up the whole milk, not the milk jar, but that big water jug thing, it's like, that's a lot of pennies. And I'm telling you, you do that over a lifetime, you can have so many companies be like, but I didn't enjoy it. And I was like, actually, when you learn to save, it's more fun.
It is more fun
than the red shoes.
I've learned that.
It really
as well.
is.
Yeah. Well, and that leads us perfectly into our third thing that will make you wealthy, and that's mindset. But
yes,
we are going to do that next episode. So we're gonna cut this episode into two parts. Let's put it that way. We'll do part one and part two. Part two will be mindset. I'm actually really excited about that as well because you just touched on it a little bit. Anything else, Brett, before we wrap up that you thought of, you jotted down, you want to tell the audience before we sign off and get out of here?
No, I mean, I think we hit it all really good today. And I guess there's one thing I probably would want to say is, we look at some yucky houses. A lot of people think there's yucky houses. And I'd say if you put your time into education and going in and getting a career, or even if you're a grocer and wasn't educated and you spent your time saving money and you have, $200,000, $150,000 put away, and you're not old in your life, but you're kind of midlife somewhere, you might take $25,000 and just buy yourself a decent house, one that's not going to be a lot of work, just to allow that wealth, if you're able to then have a simple rental, and that would be a rental of a nicer looking home. It'd be a home that it wasn't like the ones we were showing pictures of earlier, but it'd be like the nice one on the corner, around the corner, and you're thinking, hey, I might live in this house, but that house is still really nice. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, be great for a family. Stick your $25,000 there while your money's in the stock, and then allow your money to grow. And then, you can get out of that house in 10 years. And none of this stuff is 2 years, because 2 years you can catch yourself in a downswing. In any investing, you always have to be careful that you don't get yourself thinking, oh, I'm going to do this in a year or 2 years. It's got to always be 5 years. And it's amazing how many times I've been able to take it off the table in 15 months to 3 years.
Right.
But I don't ever plan to take it off the table. I think I was telling you the other day what I think I was going to hold for a long time. I ended up holding for a couple of years. What I thought I was going to hold for a couple of years, I ended up holding for a long time.
Yeah, your career. Yeah, absolutely. That's
sorry,
so
that
good.
was a long ending. But
No, that's great. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it. So as we wrap up here, we always like to just thank our sponsors, one of which is the Creative Consortium. It's the space we're in right now. We're so thankful to have this studio space and the time. And the other one I'd mention is our website, which is strategyinvestment.net, strategyinvestment.net. Hey, and that's where we're getting a lot of these questions. So if you have a question you'd love to hear on the show, or you want to get in contact with anybody on the show, or even one of Brett's brokers at his office, you can do that there as well. And of course, we would love if you would subscribe to the podcast or hit that subscribe button on YouTube as well. And with that, we will see you next time.